I say every day. It's a getting closer to taking a bath with my fucking toaster.
We're not qualified.
Who are you?
Explorers in the further regions of experience.
I will do as they. If you do not listen, then the hell with you.
Okay, sorry about that, folks. I'm having troubles today. As you can see, it's just me because all my friends are too good to hang out with me. So here we are. Welcome to Screaming into the Void, number 107, the show where we talk about whatever the hell we feel like, whether or not the UK government or police departments approve, which is the main topic today, which is what we'll be getting into here shortly. Now, I was hoping to have a panel today, but it looks like I might be on my own. So we will just proceed anyhow. And hopefully things will go smoothly. Apologize about the snafu there at the beginning. I'm having a day. Nothing's going right. We're a little late today as well because right before we went live about 10 minutes ago, I got struck with a sudden urge to purge my bowels. So, there's your too much information for the day. But that had to be dealt with because it was happening one way or the other. So here we are. But here I am, freshly purged and ready to go. So, real quick, let's say hello to Voraxlon in the chat. He's the only one I see there so far. But we will be greeting people as they come in. Voraxlon says, I love y'all like a brother, but I'm going to have to catch up during work this next week, going to a country club to have a meal with my girlfriend. No worries, dude. No worries. Real life always comes first, which is, in fact, I think the case for the majority of my usual panel is just, real life. Like Saturday afternoons are hard. I get it, the friends I have here, the fellow co-panelists, the people that I stream with regularly who are not streaming at this time have other things going on. So it is what it is. Meanwhile, we are live currently on YouTube, Rumble, and Twix. You can find us in any of those locations. If you are on Twix, I've posted the links to all three of those places there. You can reach any of those places there if you show up in the chat. If I do not address directly, I will at least bring up at least one of your chats so that you know that I do see you. Although if it's just me sitting here talking my head off, I'll probably be a little bit more interactive with chat than you. It is what it is. So anyway, the big news. So one of the things that I want to remind people is that there's been a lot of news happening in the last few weeks, last month or so. There's been a lot of like big things happening, big distracting, hey, look over here, don't mind what's going on over there kind of things. It's been pretty intense that way. So I would like to remind everybody that a few weeks ago, the former president of the United States, Donald Trump, was shot at, had his ear pierced, and was nearly killed. Let's not forget that. That got news for about 2 days before it got superseded by other things. So, just want to put that out there, remind everybody that happened, and it will likely happen again at some point. These people aren't going to be happy till he's out of the way. So that said, I'm, and I'll probably be swinging that way with my vote, come November anyhow. Now, I'm not the most ardent Trump supporter in the world. I think there's some shit that he fucked up a couple of years ago when he was, or 4 years ago when he was president. I think that he has a tendency to surround himself with people who give bad advice intentionally. I think that his, as my mother would call it, his people picker is broken. He tends to surround himself with either yes men or people who are seeking to sabotage him in some way. And he tends to be a little too trusting there, which is unfortunate. And I kind of see it going that way again here soon. I don't know about this J.D. Vance fellow. From what I understand, a couple of years ago, he was diehard Never Trump. And I'm not saying people can't change their minds. People can absolutely change their minds, that's totally fine. I'm just saying that I'm not 100% sure that I buy that he did change his mind. I think that might have been a political maneuver because he could see which way the wind was blowing, which is something that you see with a lot of politicians, particularly in places like the United States. Less so, of course, in the UK, which is what we'll be talking about mostly today. So let me find the specific video I wanted to bring up first. So I do have a few things we're gonna real quick. All right. And hit the present button. Share screen. Do. All right. There we go. And we're going to probably, let's do it like this. Yeah, that'll work. That'll work. That way, still on screen, you can still see the thing. So this is the chief of the Metropolitan Police in London, I believe, who said some things. Some dirty things. He's been a bad boy. So, all right, let's listen to what he had to say here. This comes to us from Sky News, by the way.
We will throw the full force of the law at people. And whether you're in this country committing crimes on the streets or committing crimes from further afield online, we will come after you.
Talk to me about that, because we have seen some high-profile figures whipping up the hatred. You talked about it in there with the officers, in fact, about this being added to by online commentary. I mean, I'm even thinking of the likes of Elon Musk getting involved. What are you considering when it comes to dealing with people who are whipping up this kind of behaviour from behind a keyboard, maybe in a different country?
Being a keyboard warrior does not make you safe from the law. You can be guilty of offences of incitement, of stirring up racial hatred. There are numerous terrorist offences regarding the sort of publishing of material. All of those offences are in play if people are provoking hatred and violence on the streets, and we will come after those individuals just as we will physically confront on the streets the thugs and the obs who are causing the problems for communities.
Okay, so what he just said is that if you commit a violation of UK law or a perceived violation of UK law, even if you are not in the UK, right? Even if you are not a UK citizen subject to UK laws, that they're going to attempt to extradite you to the UK so that they can prosecute you and punish you according to their laws. Now, this strikes me as a little bit, not a little bit, a lot dystopian. I mean, there are some issues here. Number one is that the UK and the US, for instance, my being in the US is going to be very US centric. There is an extradition treaty between the UK and the US, but as far as I know, that applies to US citizens who commit crimes on UK soil and then flee to the US to escape, then extradition can happen, which I totally get. If you go over to UK and you do something horrible, right, or you rob a bank or you murder somebody, right, and then you flee to back home to escape judgment, as it were, yeah, you should be extradited, because you actually did something bad. However, if someone like myself, for instance, and I've been doing this shit, were to say tweet some negative comments about the Metropolitan Police, about the UK government, or about the horrendous things that are going on in the UK due to the invasion of, shall we say, immigrants who are taking over and committing horrendous crimes and getting away with it, or getting a slap on the wrist at the very most, or the police will go into neighborhoods that are ruled by immigrants, and they'll be like, oh, well, what do you want us to do? And the immigrants will be like, we need to stand down and let us do whatever we want, and they just fucking agree to it. That kind of shit, that's fine. But yeah. See, we got you in the chat. That's something that I'm concerned about. Yeah, they're locking up people for retweeting. They're locking up people for just watching things like this. Now, honestly, if any of you out there in the UK and watching this stuff or commenting or whatever, I mean, I would encourage you not to. There's a reason I haven't invited any of my UK friends to be on the panel here, is because I don't want them going to jail for association with somebody like me, because I will tell that government to go fuck themselves. You know, my people told that government to go fuck themselves in 1776. You know, we have no problem doing it again. They can kiss my colonial ass, as far as I'm concerned. You know, the people, on the other hand, this is kind of the similar situation that you got with, like China, right? The People's Republic of China is ruled by the Chinese Communist Party, or the CCP. And I have a huge problem with the CCP. I think that they're totalitarian. I think that they're evil. I think that they are a blight upon the world, and specifically upon their people, right? But I don't have a problem with like your average Chinese person, you know, your average Chinese citizen. You know, it's just a person trying to get by in a country that's ruled by a bunch of jackasses. You know, I see the UK is kind of going down that similar path right now, which is unfortunate. Those bricks wouldn't dare me anyways. Well, I hope you're right, man. I do. It's getting kind of scary there. But and there's honestly precious little I can do about any of this stuff from over here. I'm 5,000 miles away. You know, I'm not a UK citizen. I don't have, you know, any kind of access to any sort of recourse to address this, because I simply don't, as a US citizen who's never been to the UK. I'm just watching this and I'm thinking to myself, how long before this comes to my country? You know, it's already come to Canada. You know, they've been quietly arresting people for bullshit for years now. You know, so it is what it is, I guess. But when this motherfucker here is saying that anywhere in the world, if you were online and you say something that they consider, you know, a violation of their statutes or their laws, their, you know, anti-hate speech, their you know, anything that comes across as like racially inciting rhetoric or that sort of thing, you know, unless of course you're on a certain side. If you're on a very specific side, then they won't say fuck all to you. There are going to be people who are going to get away with this. There are going to be people in Parliament who are going to be able to get away with this as well, who are continuing to. As long as they're attacking the right people, then it's fine, you know. But hell, Tommy, good to see you, man. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. So yeah, I did see that he does want to go after Elon Musk, who also has been very vocally telling them to go fuck themselves every 6 hours or so since that came out, which is great, because you know they don't have any real recourse to go after him. You know, like he's a United States citizen. He was born in South Africa. He's got no ties to the UK whatsoever. They have no recourse. You know, a lot of people might think, oh, well, the Boers and all that stuff, but the thing is the Boers were Dutch originally. They weren't even British. So yeah. And there isn't much they can do about it, but they're sure talking a big game. And that's one of the reasons that I'm bringing it up now, is because as far as I'm concerned, they want to come after me. They're welcome to fucking try. Right. I will defend myself. Everybody I know out here will defend themselves. You know, I'm sure there are people who would go along with this because they don't want to offend, which is unfortunate. Let me know if I'm roboting. I'm having Looks like a little bit of a connection issue there, but yeah, it's just it's silly. It's silly. Yep, I agree. Bunch of uppity cunts drunk off their well, I don't know that they are exactly that. I'm sure some of them are, but I think some of them are just afraid. Some of them are afraid of the culture that's moved in and taken over. Some of them are afraid of being subjected to Sharia law, just being in the wrong neighborhood, being the wrong fucking skin color, you know, which is something that we're not unfamiliar with in the United States. There are certain places where if you go and you're not, white as white can be, you probably don't want to be there after sundown, or at least there used to be anyway. There are certain neighborhoods in larger cities where if you're pasty white, you definitely don't want to be there after sundown. East St. Louis comes to mind, south side of Chicago, South Central in Los Angeles. There are places where it's just generally not a good fucking all of Kansas City. So yeah. And here's the thing. I need to make this abundantly clear as well. So while I'm not Islamic, I don't follow Islam. There are certain things about it that really turn me off. That doesn't mean that I hate all Muslims. I don't. I do draw a distinction between a Muslim and an Islamist. An Islamist is more militant, more forceful about things. They have a tendency to twist seemingly benign words into weapons. That kind of thing is I do have an issue with, and that seems to be what Europe and the UK are being flooded with currently. And that's unfortunate because I happen to know a few Muslims who are genuinely good people. One of my closest friends, some of you guys know Amira, the exiled lioness, who's a Muslim, right? And honestly, my life has been blessed knowing her. It really has. I'm very, very happy that I got a chance to get to know her. So I don't want to get on this like all Muslims are bad thing, because I don't believe that. I also don't, in the same way that I don't believe like all Jews are bad just because they're Jewish. That's like, no, some people are fucking evil. It doesn't really matter what God they pray to, and some people are good, and most people like myself and like most of us, I suspect, are somewhere in between, day to day. So it's, it is what it is. And I think she's aware of that, she's addressed that in the past. She said that, look, sometimes you just get these assholes who are bad Muslims. I get it. I do. The problem is there seem to be so many of them and they're all congregating in the same place, Europe. So, yeah, it's a whole bunch of, like, as the Trumpster himself said, man, they're not sending their best. They're not. And I'd be willing to bet that a lot of these guys have been chased out of their own Muslim countries. They come under the guise of refugees. I'm not saying that they aren't refugees. Maybe they are. This is one of the things that they don't like to talk about when it comes to Palestine. The reason that none of the other Arab countries are really stepping up to help them, except for the, like Iran, which isn't even an Arab country, it's Persian, right? Different kind of people. And the only reason that they're doing anything at all is because like they don't love the Palestinians. They just hate the Jews more. They hate the Israelis more. And that's all that ever was. But as far as the Palestinians themselves go, I mean, Egypt has walls up against against Palestine too, right? They're not letting them out. They're not signing up to help them. And all that. Nobody wants to reintegrate them. And the reason for that is just because all these people come from specific tribes and such that were sent away from the other Arab nations, however long ago, because they weren't welcome there, and it sucks for them. It sucks for the average Palestinian, but that's the truth of the matter. So yeah, it's just there's so much shit going on there. I'm going to drop this down because we did watch that. So I will bring up the next thing here, but yeah, it's just it's been kind of nuts. But now they're saying they can come to. Yeah, nobody wants to address the elephant in the room. That's true. It's like the only reason anybody's back in Palestine over in the Middle East at all is because they hate Israel even more. But they don't love the Palestinians. They are not allies of the Palestinians. They're not friends with the Palestinians. You don't see them fucking dropping food and medicine into Palestine, right? Only thing they're doing is dropping fucking missiles into Israel and saying, "Oh, we're allies," but they're not really. They're not. They're taking advantage of a situation. Iran specifically has done everything it can to destabilize nearly every country in the region. Actually, at one point or another, they are definitely a major threat to everybody in the Middle East. I got a buddy who thinks that they're a major threat to everybody in the world, but I don't agree with that. I don't think that they are on that level. I'm sure they imagine that they are, right? But I don't honestly believe they've been a threat to the world since the Persian Empire fell, and I think they're a little salty about that. But yeah. So it is what it is, I guess. But and then I did see this here just a little bit ago. I have not corroborated it. We got a bit of or I haven't read through this yet, but there's an article here. Let's see. Stop sharing that. Always got to switch this stuff over. There's got to be an easier way to do this, but we'll figure it out as we go, I suppose. All right. So, also, you might have noticed my new background there. I've got the hell. Let's try it this way. Never mind. That's not working out. Anyway, you might have caught a glimpse of it. I added Donald Trump to the background because, why the fuck not? Gives people a reminder. So, from what I saw earlier today, I haven't read this article yet. I figured maybe we'll through it a little bit. Tech giants will be forced to ban fake news under labor plans. So, yeah, that's... Here's the thing. I think it was last year, right, that the government of Ireland, not Northern Ireland, but Ireland, came out and said that they were going to essentially assume control of the internet, assume the has the word, like just the role of stewardship of the internet. Basically, anything that was said online anywhere in the world was punishable by Irish law or whatever, and that they could come to your country and shut you down. Kind of shit, which of course was laughable on the surface of it, and is still kind of fucking silly because like Ireland has that kind of pull, like they've ever had that kind of pull, but whatever. But one of those things they were doing was they were trying to blackmail certain tech giants from allowing this sort of thing. They were essentially saying, hey, if you let people talk like this on your platform, we will shut you down in Ireland, and we will seek to shut you down in other countries as well. And obviously it didn't go very well for them. I think there are certain companies that bent absolutely, Facebook, well, Meta, let's just say Meta, because that covers, Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram, and possibly some other stuff that I'm missing here. I think TikTok was fine with it, but TikTok is run by Tencent. It's part of the whole CCP thing out of China. It's entirely propagandic. Over here in the States, they show all kinds of degenerate shit designed to get kids to behave in ways that are counterproductive to, a healthy society and adulthood. Whereas over in China, they show math videos and science videos, and they show inspirational videos of, people being all they can be, and military propaganda stuff. So, but none of the stuff that we see in the States is allowed on Chinese TikTok. It's great that way. Yeah. So, yeah. Well, and that was the thing. There was I think it was GARM, GARM. I forget what the acronym stands for. Just a little bit ago, that was telling everybody that they were going to be facing tremendous fines in the UK. I think this was out of Germany. And if they didn't start handing over personal information of specific users who said specific things to these people, And if I remember right, the whole GARM project was actually a civilian project. It wasn't even a government thing. It was just a civilian oversight kind of committee thing, which means they had even even less pull. But what was interesting about that was that all of the major tech platforms, from Alphabet, who controls YouTube, and Google, to Meta, which controls the aforementioned sites, all of the other major ones, except I think no, I think even Rumble went along with this shit. Except for X, except for Twix, except for Elon Musk's platform, went right along with that shit. Although I did see a post recently from the CEO of Gab saying that we will never hand over information to the UK government, which is, kind of cool to see. But yes, Global Alliance for Responsible Media. Thank you. So, but yeah, it's just idiotic. There's always somebody out there who's trying to seek to suppress and control what other people say and do and think and see. And it always is somebody who has nothing but the most nefarious plans for down the road. It's never somebody who has anybody's actual best interest at heart. Not ever. Even to bring it closer to home here in the Bible Belt. I'm not in the Bible Belt, but it's in America. There are certain political Christian elements that would like nothing more than to strike everything that is not specifically adherent to their doctrines from the face of the earth forever. Right? This includes other religions. This includes media. This includes books. This includes, other ideas and other ways of life, kind of thing. And I don't hold to that either. I don't think that any one group should be able to dictate, anything else. I do believe there are exceptions. Obviously, there are a few things that we should all agree are bad. Right? Harming kids in any way is bad. Right? That's something that we should not be, as a society, we should put down as soon as we see it. But in terms of, say, like I'm a pagan, for instance, right? I want to go do my religious practices, which are, not that impressive, and they're not that spooky or anything like that. But if I were to go, say, and try to perform a rite or whatever, these people would want to have me jailed because it's an affront to their God. And I take issue with that. The same way that I take issue with, mobs of armed thugs in the UK beating the shit out of people because they're ginger, because they're native. Right? I'd have the same problem there that I do with, over in, say, South Dakota, where there's a large Native American presence. Right? Anybody there getting the shit kicked out of them because they ain't white. I have a problem with that. I have a problem with that across the board. So usually a woman. See, the thing is that's true. That's true, because, and this is going to be, so if you're out there and you're listening, I'm not attempting to offend you, but if you do get offended by this, that is entirely on you. Offense is something that you take. It's not something that is given to you. It's a choice that you make. So, if you are, it wasn't my intention, but also not really my fault. So, but the thing is that women typically are more emotional than men. They're emotionally driven. They see something that's upsetting and they respond accordingly. Men, on the other hand, tend to be more logical, tend to think through things before they do things, right? So a lot of times when you get these committees and such, they're usually headed up by some mom or other because she saw something that was really upsetting to her personally. Right. And then she whips up a firestorm with like-minded moms. And then you've got like flyers all over the neighborhood. And the next thing you know, you've got an angry mob marching a guy down to the gallows. That's how this typically goes. And again, I'm not saying all women everywhere are like this, but I'm saying that, UA is correct here. That there's usually a woman behind it. Not always. Sometimes it's what appears to be a dude, but it is in fact a woman. So I'm of course joking about that last part. That wasn't like a trans allegory or anything. I was just saying that some men are bitches. Yeah. It is what it is. So yeah, this kind of thing is just not new, but it's also not good. And UK has obviously more pull than Ireland by itself does. And Ireland, from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, So Northern Ireland is part of the UK, but Ireland is like the rest of the island is not. The rest of the island is a sovereign nation, correct? From my understanding, which is where a lot of that stuff, the troubles and whatnot came from, was from. I think the main Ireland is very Catholic, and Northern Ireland is Anglican, if I remember right, and that was really like the main schism between the people, the loyalists, and the like the Sinn Féin types. So, yeah. Stop the ride. I want to get up. Man, if I had any control over that, I would absolutely let you. But that's not how this works, man. We're all on this shitstorm carousel together. Best thing that I know how to do without actually doing anything that I can't say on YouTube for fear of, obviously getting shut down and not being able to get the message out anymore, which is something that I really irritates me. I do. So short of starting bloody revolution, which I'm not advocating for, YouTube, the best thing that I know how to do to combat this is to talk about it, is to get the word out, is to say what's on my mind, even if what's on my mind happens to be erroneous and incorrect. At least I put it out there, right? And if I'm proven wrong later, I will admit that. I'm totally cool with that. But I think the best way to combat restrictions on free speech is to exercise your free speech, right? And as far as I'm concerned, and as far as U.S. law is concerned, by the way, hate speech is free speech, right? We don't have any laws restricting that. You can say whatever the fuck you like here, which is very cool. And that's not to say that things won't happen if you say the wrong thing to the wrong person. If I walk up to some, 6'6" dude in a wig and a dress, and I say, "Hey, sir," and he's like, "It's ma'am," and then he breaks my fucking nose. I mean, that's a consequence of my saying, "Hey, sir." I'm not saying it's a fair consequence. I think it's disproportionate as shit, but that's why it happens, because I said the thing, and I'm prepared to accept that. I also would probably say it anyway, because I'm kind of an asshole, and I might respond accordingly in that instance, because by punching me in the face, this other person has then opened the door for consequences of their own, right? And that's generally how that works. It's also how feuds start and don't end. So it does kind of behoove us to respond to things that we don't like accordingly as well. We have to show some restraint there as well. When we are offended by something, when we perceive something as an affront or an attack upon our person, we need to be able to show some discernment and some restraint, right? Is it worth it? Is it worth starting a fight with this person? Is it worth going to jail? Is it worth, all the trouble that comes with that, right? I mean, sometimes it is. Sometimes it is. 1776, totally fucking worth it, right? But sometimes it's not. Sometimes discretion really is the better part of valor. So somebody says something I don't like, I ignore them and I walk away. Nobody gets a bloody nose. Nobody ends up in the hospital or in jail or in the morgue, right? So yeah, we got to kind of weigh that. So, hey, yeah, we love you, Susan. You cunt. We're still saying this. Carrie, my good friend, Mandatory Carrie, Dateslav Act Man Carrie. He is insistent that we still call the CEO of YouTube Susan, even though his name, I don't know. I don't remember what it is. It's Hindi, I think. But and also he's a dude. But you wouldn't know that by how emotionally he reacts to some things sometimes. But yeah, apparently he is a dude. And not named Susan. I don't remember what his name is. It's like Randeep or something. That's probably incorrect. I don't know. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Like when you say Asian, like, do you mean like Southeast Asian? Do you mean Middle Eastern? Do you mean Siberian? Do you mean subcontinent? Because like people apparently now we've got to include all of them, except of course the Russians for some reason, even though they're also Asian, because they're pale. So it is what it is. I don't know. But yeah, just gauge your response and measure it accordingly is, I guess, what I'm getting at. And this you know, well, you know, you better not let your customers and your users say things that we don't like, or we'll fucking spank you kind of shit. This is a disproportionate response. This is what happens when people are bitches, right? No offense to anybody out there in the UK. I'm sure I know some of y'all are very fine people, right? And I use that phrase specifically because I think it's appropriate. I know some of y'all are fine people. I know some of the fucking the immigrants out there are just there because they want to build a life and they're not actually out causing trouble. I know this is a fact, but I also know that you're ruled by bitches. You know, starting with King Chuck and all the way down, right? I know Chuck's kind of a figurehead at this point, but even so, he's a lickspittle toady of the WEF. You know, he works directly with those guys. He does not have the best interest of his citizens at heart. He doesn't. He's a globalist and a piece of shit. And also not my king, so I can say that. You know, but yeah, it is easier to generalize, and sometimes, if I'm being perfectly honest, it's more fun too. You know. So I'm honestly, I'm surprised you guys even still have a monarchy. I really am. You know, I mean, from what I understand, it's the prime minister in the House of Lords, right, that basically rules everything. You know, and the House of Commons is there just to kind of make the peasants feel better about themselves. You know, but yeah, it's there. I'm really surprised that you guys even still have a monarchy at this point, because even with Elizabeth, the last one, even her, you know, for the last 40 years of her reign, I from what I understand, in British law, you still have people who, or you still have like a certain amount of, you know, absolute power, right? If Elizabeth came out and said, I want this thing to happen, or I want this to stop, boom, it would happen because she was the queen. But she also mostly spent her time, you know, at parades and like cutting ribbons and shit like that, and photo ops and that sort of thing, and didn't really like rule hands on. And it kind of got to a point where most of that power ended up in the hands of the prime minister. So yeah, and that's I don't know. I mean, if the king was really on your side, he might fucking do that, right? I don't think he is, but you know, I don't think that Parliament has your best interest in mind either. I really don't. I don't think they have the best interest in mind at all. And actually, you know what it kind of makes me think, and this is probably a little too far out there, but it makes me think that somebody wants to rebuild the British Empire. Somebody wants the vast majority of the developed world to be under British rule again. Right? That's what I'm seeing here. That's what this makes me think of. You know, in the same way that the WEF and all of their agenda makes me think of the way that the Nazi regime just bulldozed over everything and took over, except because brute force didn't quite work out last time. In this time, the weapon is not the blitzkrieg, it's economics, right? In the same way that to a certain extent, I do kind of agree that that Putin does in fact want to recreate something of what the Soviet Union was, right? But with the obvious exception of fucking Ukraine, it's economic, because there was only a few years ago, I think he was trying to, well, not even a few years ago, it was like 10, 12 years ago, the last time he tried some shit with Ukraine before this, it was because they said no when he tried to build an economic coalition of former Soviet states, right? So everybody wants to rule the world, right? Everybody wants to rule the world. So again, let me know if I'm kind of roboting out, because I've got like weird shit going on with my bandwidth at the moment, and I'm hoping that it'll be fixed soon. But there's not much I can do about it at the moment, unfortunately. This might end up being a shorter episode too, just because, you know, it's like I don't know how much I got to talk about without other people to bounce shit off of up here. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, it's just there's so much shit going on right now, and as far as I'm concerned, the UK can kiss my motherfucking ass as far as that goes. They do not get to dictate what happens in another country. In the same way that so Germany will strike you for violations of German law on a video if you upload it anywhere else in the world on YouTube, right? If it violates their law or whatever, you might get blocked in Germany. That's fine, right? But they will attempt to block you worldwide because you violated their law. This has happened to me personally. I know it's happened to other people. It's bullshit, and you can fight that claim because you know it's like, I'm not a German citizen. Fuck you. You know. So, but yeah, it's just one of those things, man. Okay, I do sound good. All right, good deal. Okay, so sorry about this, folks. I've had to go on the phone here. I'm still working on the computer. It is having some issues, but we will continue the show nonetheless. Apologize for that. That was just some bullshit. As soon as I get the other shit up and running, we'll switch back over. It is what it is. You might hear me in two places for a second though when that happens. uh, where was I at? I don't recall. Yeah, welcome back temporarily. Well, I don't have as much trouble with this on the phone as I do, and also I'm running off of the 4G and not my not my Wi-Fi, so it's also going to end up costing me a little bit more this way. But it is what it is. So, remind me, where was I at before I cut out? I don't rightly recall off the top of my head. Trump assassin was allowed by SS to do what he did. More details come about. Yeah, the more we hear about that shit, the more it sounds exactly like that. It sounds exactly like they were attempting to, they were colluding with it. The whole thing was a big old conspiracy, a big old plot. Right, and they say it's like, oh, you're conspiracy theorists. They make up all kinds of shit. I was like, yeah, but the facts seem to fit that there was in fact a conspiracy. See, a conspiracy is not a false thing. A conspiracy, all that means is that two or more people worked together to achieve a specific aim, usually nefarious. That's all that means. The theory part is just like, well, I don't have proof, but this is what I think. That's it. That's all a conspiracy theory is. Now, of course, it's a bad word. You can't just say that. Hey, Suga. I I am on a different headset because I don't my setup got all fucked up. So I'm running this through my phone at the moment. I do apologize about the audio quality. I'm trying to fix that on the PC as we're speaking here. So, but yeah, let's see when the internet. Oh yeah, I can bring those up from the phone too. Ha ha ha! I almost never stream from my phone, so I'm learning along with you guys. When the internet goes, that will be Sam over the radio signals. Yeah, I'm looking into something about that. Yeah, seeing if we can't make that work. Just in case, because they're like certain airwaves, certain radio waves, they're not going to be able to shut down. They're not going to be able to control. Like pirate radio is a thing for this very reason. And I think it's a good thing that it exists because what is the internet but a line of communication between the whole world, right? And what is the easiest way to destabilize a movement? Well, cut off communication. I think that a couple of weeks ago, that quote unquote glitch that we had with the whole Google thing, Google update with what was it called? It was CloudStrike, I think. I don't think that was a glitch. I think they were testing the off switch. Because it hit everything that got that update. Everything. It hit hospitals. It hit government services. It hit people's PCs. It hit all kinds of stuff worldwide, mind you. I'm sure we haven't heard anything about any bad things happening to people for this, but I'm positive somebody out there died because this thing fucked up some machinery at a hospital or something somewhere. So yeah, I think that they were just testing it, and I think this is Mark II of it because they tested it in Canada 2 years ago when there was those rolling internet blackouts up there. So I know a few Canadians. And they weren't super pleased with that. Most of them had to do what I'm doing right now, just stream through the phone. So let's see. A lot of things haven't recovered yet. Yeah, that's true. The shitternet. You know what? If I ever do have to go to like ham radio signal or whatever, that's probably what I'm going to call it. The shitternet. I'm just going to call it that right out of the gate because I think that's funny. Let's see. They tested emergency phone alert. They shut off online banking a few times. Yep. These are all tests. These are not glitches. These are not accidents. These are not
they're working on ways to be able to cut off communication between people who would oppose them. Period. I guarantee there's a backup somewhere that they have access to that we do not. And by they, I mean specifically the WEF and their associates. Right? Those people specifically. I know that there are some people out there who would say something like, "Oh, it's the Jews." It's like, oh, it might be some specific Jews who are involved, but I don't think it's the Jews, like all of them. It's like I know a couple of Jews. They ain't got shit to do with that. They're just people, same as everybody else. George Soros is Jewish, but he's also a Nazi collaborator and a thoroughly evil man who seeks to topple economies and governments. But him being Jewish has nothing to do with him being evil. He just is evil. I'd say that evil is in fact his religion. Jewish might be his heritage, but evil is his religion, evil and money. Whereas somebody like, say, Bill Gates, I don't believe is Jewish, but he's right there lockstep with them, right? Totally evil dude. And I don't think this is a matter of like ethnicity. I think this is just, some people are good, some people are very bad, and most of the rest of us are somewhere in between. So yeah, that's what we've been talking about, Suka, is the UK free speech thing. This fucking thing, I don't know what's going on. As it turns out, it's not my computer at all. It's my fucking internet connection, right? It just appears to have gone out. So I'm hoping that it comes back up. If it doesn't, we'll just have to run the rest of the show like this. Unfortunately, it is what it is. Every time it comes back up, it's like, oh, I got a little bit of signal. I really don't. I'm going to check something real quick. So pardon my muting my mic for a second. Okay, apologize about that. I was just checking the router. Router's fine. I don't know what's going on with the signal. So it is what it is. This only happens. This seems to happen every time I fucking go live, right? Every time. And I don't know if it's just because I've like if it's a bandwidth issue or if it's something else. But this is kind of ridiculous. I'm not very happy about it. And the rest of the time when I'm not live, when I'm doing anything else on the internet, anything at all, right? It doesn't matter how bandwidth expensive it is. It runs fine. It runs just fine. It's just when I'm streaming. So I don't know. All right, I'm trying this one more time, seeing if that'll work. And if it does, then I'll switch back to the PC. If it doesn't, then we are stuck with the shit audio, and I do apologize for that. So it might be the upload. Yeah, that could be it. I don't know though. It's like, Jesus. So I restart the computer, and it comes up, and the signal's strong, and I get into it, and it's trying to start up the VPN, and it gets like, I don't know, 30 seconds into that, and all of the signal just fucking drops every time. So there's not much I can do about that, about the location of the router or any of that shit, unfortunately. So don't show me medal updates. I don't give a fuck about the Olympics. I don't know why they think that I would. I haven't cared about the Olympics since I was like, I don't know, 20. A long time ago, man. Hi, Zeron. Haven't seen you in a while. Welcome to the show. Bitching about the internet and the problems with the UK and all that stuff. So, yeah. Keir Starmer, the guy they're calling two-tier Keir. Is that what we're talking about in the chat there? Yeah. Yeah, he's I've been hearing some shit about that guy too. None of it's good. None of it. No, doesn't seem to be a good dude at all. So I don't know. I don't know. I wish things were better for everybody everywhere in the world, but I don't think that that's possible. So we just gotta make do with whatever we got. All right, let's try this again. See if this fucking works this time. Had a bunch of articles pulled up and stuff, so I had more concrete topics. But at this point, you know, like we're just rambling along. It'll be fine. Yeah. God damn it, I can't. You ever have one of those days where you're trying to type in your password and you're so flustered by everything that's going on that you keep fucking up the password and it almost locks you out of your computer? I know what the password is, but I keep miskeying it. Oh, good. It looks like we're sort of up. It's got fucking weak signal. I'm gonna give it a little bit before we try to jump back on. But it looks like it's coming back. So that's good. What the fuck is going on? Yeah, I don't know why that's not working out. Anyhow, I guess long story short, what I was there's never any such thing as long story short with me. I know it is what it is. I'm not afraid of the Met Police. I'm not afraid of them. I don't have any reason to be afraid of them, despite their statements earlier this week. They're welcome to try to extradite me for saying shit on the internet. They're welcome to try to get me to shut up about say that one kid. I really need to actually like do some better research and have like these names memorized and stuff. But I have a very shit memory for like names and faces and that sort of thing. But the kid who went and stabbed 3 little girls a couple weeks ago, last week, was it last week or was it week? I think it was last week. And a bunch of people got out and protested, and they all got labeled wrong. They got labeled as like, oh, far right extremists who, you know, hate people of color and hate immigrants. And I was like, no, maybe they just hate having their kids fucking murdered. You know, that seems to be like the more logical conclusion to me. And I don't have no problem saying that. I know that that's punishable by law in UK now, but out here it ain't. You know, fuck you guys. You know, you're letting murderers go free. You're letting rapists go free. You know what didn't used to be a thing in England, and those of you who are in England, I'm sure can attest to this. Rape gangs didn't used to be a thing there. Didn't start becoming a thing until certain cultures started bleeding in. You know, certain cultures where that's more acceptable. You know, which, by the way, objectively makes them fucking worse cultures, in my opinion. So, all right. Looks like I might be able to get up and running here in just a moment, yeah. Far right extremists. I mean, look, here's the thing: is there are extremists out there. They do exist, right? They're a thing, right? There are extremists on both ends of the spectrum. They do exist. The problem is that the ones on the left seem to far outnumber the ones on the right. And the ones on the left will label anybody who's not them as the far right extremists. And this includes people who just want to be left alone, right? Now it's just it's horseshit. Give me just a second. I'm gonna try. You might see 2 of me on the screen for a second.
We're back, baby. We're back. All right, I gotta drop this fucker off of here. There we go. All right, back on the good sound, on the better sound. I'm gonna keep this over here just in case that fucking happens again. Yeah, a little bit trippy. It is what it is. So here's the thing: the Proud Boys were a joke. They were a joke, man. They were started by freaking Gavin. What's his name? The comedian with the dude with the big mustache and the tiny glasses and the tiny dick that he showed on FNT. But it was just supposed to be a fucking joke, and then it got turned into something else, like all these things do. but I wouldn't necessarily call them far right. Some of them are assholes, but they were also one of the only groups that was pushing back against Antifa during the Summer of Love too, which I don't necessarily have a problem with. I am not, in fact, a clone. I am an eldritch horror, and I can be in more than one place at the same time. Yeah, McGinnis, Gavin McGinnis. Thank you, Suga. Yeah, but they're just like they were never really a threat to anybody. All they ever did, besides talk a bunch of shit on the internet and show up to prevent Antifa from fucking hurting people or burning shit down. That's all they've ever done, by the way. Aside from that thing with Enrique Tarrio, who was their leader, who's in jail now for destroying private property because he, I think it was a pride flag, I want to say. He took a pride flag and he stomped on it and burned it and shit, and that got him into trouble because it was someone's private property. There was a law broken there. I don't think it was worth fucking years in jail for, but like that's a slap on the wrist. You pay for the item and then you pay for court fees. That's what that should have been, but yeah, he went to jail for it. So yeah, they did, but there were other groups who were doing that too. There was footage from one of my old stomping grounds in Colorado where Antifa showed up and the neighborhood turned out and they're like, "The fuck you are," and they pushed them out. They didn't strike first either. They were just started walking these guys back, walking forward, forcing them to move back. And then one of the Antifa guys like pulled a knife or a baton or some shit like that. And they all got their asses beat because they were facing a bunch of like Coloradans with dad bods. And they're all like skinny little twerps in black bloc, So it is what it is. I did enjoy that just because it was nice to see neighborhoods standing up for themselves, in a non-destructive way. Obviously, yeah, fists were thrown. A couple people got bloody noses, that kind of thing. And I'm not advocating that we should go out and like beat the shit out of anybody we disagree with, but I do think that neighborhoods should stand up and protect themselves from obvious threats. Which is why I didn't have any issue at all with the families and the neighbors who came out and protest about the young person who ended up knifing a bunch of little girls. Didn't have any problem with that at all. It's not my country. Obviously, I have no skin in the game there, but I would have said the same thing if this had happened in fucking Riyadh, right? Let's say some fucking psychotic Belgian moves to Riyadh, right, and ends up knifing a bunch of girls wearing hijab, right? I have absolutely no problem with those neighbors and those family members taking care of that fucking person, right? My line is children. You don't fuck with kids. You don't hurt kids. You don't do bad things to kids, right? And I'm applying that all across the board. People who do that sort of thing, not only do they deserve the worst possible place in the worst imaginable version of hell, right? But I think that they absolutely deserve to have the process of arriving in said hell expedited as soon as possible. Like I know there are people out there who'd be like, "Oh, well, they deserve to be punished and all that stuff that you're letting them off easy that way." I was like, no, I don't, because I see it as removing a threat to other children. You send them to jail for a few years and then they get out and then they do it again. You send them to jail and they get buried under the prison, they never do it again. That's all I'm saying. So I don't necessarily see the point in making them suffer, right? Like it's obviously would be more satisfying in the short term, allegedly YouTube. But I don't, that shouldn't be the goal there. It's like if they happen to suffer, I'm not necessarily against that, but that shouldn't be the point. The point is to like, you got all these people coming out and saying that like pedophiles can't help themselves. Pedophiles are wired a certain way and they think a certain way. And what about the ones who don't, do anything, but they just have these thoughts? And I was like, well, those thoughts usually lead to something down the road, first of all. And I'm not saying we should go all Minority Report on it, but if they have done something, right, I look at it the same way as like when you have a rabid dog in a village and that rabid dog bites somebody, right? You cannot keep that rabid dog around. It's not the dog's fault. It isn't. And that sucks that they're in that position. but you still remove the threat. You know, and that's how I see that. So, yeah, well, yeah, you do, because otherwise it's going to go around, it's going to bite somebody else. And and they keep saying they can't help it. Well, if they can't help it, then they're absolutely a threat. You know, and if they can help it, that's even worse, because then then you got to start looking at personal responsibility, and nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to look at this and be like, oh, well, they chose to do that awful thing, right? Which means that they could help themselves. They could have stopped it. You know, there's no way to win here. Yeah. I don't disagree. I think that they're certainly a manifestation of evil. Absolutely. You know, whether they mean to be or not, whether they can help it or not, there's an evil present. You know, and it's one of the worst evils. Just you gotta remove them from society, one way or the other. You gotta take them out of the place where they can do harm, right? Where they're a threat. You remove them from being able to be a threat, you know, one way or the other. You know, I'm not opposed to leper style islands. You know, I'm really not. You know, they can live, they can be fine or whatever. Just send them off to the little island where they can, you know, produce their own food and, you know, get plenty of sun and be 5,000 miles away from the nearest child at all times. You know, so I don't necessarily have a problem with chemical castration either. I honestly, I kind of don't really have a problem with physical castration in certain cases. I really don't. You know, yep, that is certainly a solution, and one that I have espoused before, and I don't. I want to be very clear here. I'm not cool with murder. I'm really not. But I think some things I got to be very careful about how I say this. I think that there are certain times when it's maybe a preferable outcome to the alternative, right? Where let's take a fictional example. You know, I understand why Batman doesn't kill the Joker, why he keeps locking him up over and over and over again, right? I understand this. I get this, because it's not in him to take a life. Totally on board with that. Totally on board with him sticking by his principles. Totally on board with him beating the shit out of people and putting them in traction for the rest of their lives, being like, at least I didn't kill him. But in the Joker's case, and I think Frank Miller writes this the best in I think it was The Dark Knight Returns, where he talks about how in Batman's internal monologue, he finds a couple more bodies, right? A couple more bodies with the rictus smiles that the Joker leaves behind. And he adds them to the tally of the hundreds and hundreds of people that Batman has murdered by not putting the Joker in the ground. Every opportunity he had to stop him forever, and he never took it. And because he doesn't, hundreds of people died, right? So he considers that he murdered those people, not the Joker. Joker was just a weapon, right? If that makes any sense. You know, yeah, it's just yeah, and that's the thing. It's like when you fight fire with fire, there's a tendency to get burned yourself, right? I look at murder as evil. I absolutely do. It is an evil, and sometimes it's possibly a necessary evil. Again, I'm trying to be careful about how I say this, but it's not. There are worse evils than murder. Harming children sexually or otherwise is right up there. And by the way, this whole trans movement, this uptick we've seen in youth going around saying we're trans, when they don't have any fucking idea what that means or entails, because nobody at that age knows who or what they are. We're all going through shit at that age. Everybody goes through shit at that age. It's a very fucking confusing time. And to have adults come in and prey on them and be like, oh, well, maybe you're the opposite sex, right? That kind of shit. As far as I'm concerned, that's absolutely harming a child, right? And they're like, well, I didn't have anybody there to help me figure it out, to help me get through this. And I was like, yeah, well, no one else did either. Suck it the fuck up. That's part of life. You know, it's like, no, you go through it and you figure it out on your own. It's part of life. And I actually suspect this, that part of the reason we're seeing so many people who are of adult age, of adult years, but who are still infantile in their behavior, right? People who go around saying adulting, ironically, as if that's a thing, right? As if being an adult is a verb and not a noun, not a, you know, that those people, I suspect, are because they had people holding their hands the entire way through, right? They had people, you know, the whole way is being like, oh, well, we can get through this together. And it's like, no, you really can't. Everybody goes on through this on their own. It's like getting your wisdom teeth in. Nobody can go through that with you. It's just fucking painful and you have to get through it, right? But you end up being able later on to chew food in the back of your mouth, or if you have them pulled or whatever, and then you can chew again because they're less painful and they're not crowding your fucking teeth or whatever. There are positive outcomes that come from the struggle, right? The struggle is necessary to grow. And I think that because people have been coddling children far too much, they've been coddling teenagers far too much. They've not been allowing them to actually experience puberty and what it is to go through that and how it is to be confused about who and what you are, about the changes in your body, the fact that you're now gawky and gangly and you can't seem to fucking find your physical balance. Like you're you know, I think that that crippled a lot of people. That stunted a lot of people's development. Maybe not physically, you know, but certainly mentally and emotionally. And I view that as like we've harmed entire generations that way. Holding their hands, giving them participation trophies, saying it's all going to be all right when we know for a fact it isn't. You know, nothing's guaranteed. There's no such thing as a safe space. And in fact, safety itself is an illusion in every sense. No one's ever really safe. And the sooner we make peace with that, preferably during our formative years, the better off and the better prepared we'll be to deal with the unsafe things when they come down the road. So, hey, Devil, no worries, man. Good to see you. I kind of wish you were here too. You know, but I've been doing all right. I've been bouncing shit off of the chat here, and you know, I'm talking pretty much nonstop for about an hour and 12 minutes. I might take a drink of water here in a second. That'd probably be a good idea. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's everybody's a winner thing. No, we're not. We're not all special. We're not all winners. We can't all be whatever we want. These were lies we were told as children. You know, yeah, and technical difficulty. I was leaving that part out. You'll watch the stream. He'll know. But when we do this, when we hold hands, when we coddle, we prevent the growth that comes from the struggle, right? So you end up with a grown-ass adult, or who should be a grown-ass adult. They're physically developed into an adult, but they're still behaving like they're teenagers, right? They're still treating everything as like, why isn't this fair? It's like, because they were never forced to confront the fact that life isn't fucking fair. They always had a safety net. They always had someone there to make sure that nothing bad happened, right? That they never had anything that they had to actually learn a hard lesson from, you know? And that's some of this I blame on fatherless homes. Some of this I absolutely do blame on that, because the father is usually the one who forces you to go through the things, right? It's like the difference between how a mother teaches and how a father teaches. Like, mothers are very nurturing and they teach different lessons than fathers do, and their lessons are every bit as necessary. I think that both parts are necessary in order to create a well-rounded and well-adjusted person. But you know, in terms of like the hard stuff, right? Like, so say you got a burner on a stove and it's turned up, right? It's glowing red. Mother will see that and they'll be like, don't touch that. That's hot. Right. And that's how they teach the kid that it's not hot. But the kid doesn't really understand. They just know the words. They hear the words and they're just like, okay, mom says that's hot, so it's bad if I touch that. But they don't understand that the heat translates into pain, translates into possible scarring and all that. And that that the pain is a necessary thing. I don't mean that you shouldn't go around putting kids' hands on burners. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that sometimes a dad would be like, maybe tap that for a second, just tap it just for a second. And then, when the kid's sucking their fingers, you'd be like, don't tell mom, first of all, that I did this. And secondly, now you understand never to do it again because you know what this means. You know what hot means. Hot means pain. Hot means bad. So you won't do it again. You learn the lesson. So, hey, Aaron. Hey, Aaron, good to see you. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's just touch it for a second. I'm not saying hold the kid's hand on there or anything, and I'm not saying that you should actually do this. This is an analogy. This is a parable, if you will, right? About the differences in the way that fathers teach and mothers teach. And there's nothing wrong with the way that mothers teach, but mothers, if given the chance, will do everything for that child, right? So when we have a society where single motherhood is encouraged, where fathers are discouraged from being in the home and being present in the kid's life. And a lot of cases, it's not that they were encouraged. They're just fucking deadbeats. There are a lot of deadbeats out there too. So I'm not putting all the blame on women here, just on the society that generates this kind of home. You end up with someone who feels as though she has to help their children over every last hurdle, right? Because that's her instinct. Her instinct is to nurture and to protect. And I get that, but you also need to have that father present because the father is the one who's going to teach them how to overcome, how to solve the problem before them and not just solve it for them. You know what I mean? So yeah, it is what it is, I guess. It's kind of going off here a little bit, but I think that's been a big part of the problem is like as soon as no fault divorce came in, as soon as we started breaking up the nuclear family and stuff, part of that had to do with like extra taxes because of extra income, but which by the way, the income tax wasn't supposed to last beyond World War I. Just saying, just putting that out there. It's entirely illegal income taxes. So putting that out there. But anyway, ever since they started trying to double the amount of income that they could take by, having both mothers and fathers in the homes working, and then they started incentivizing having the mothers and fathers live in separate places, then not be married, then not be present in their children's lives, and that sort of thing. You ended up with a lot of homes where people were raised solely by the mother, and the mothers have a certain way of looking at things that fathers look at things differently, and I think that right about then is when the participation trophy shit started, where they had it's like, everybody's a winner, nobody's really a loser, everybody gets a trophy because they showed up, right, and they did their best, and we gotta coddle all these special little snowflakes and make sure that everybody feels welcome and feels like they were included, and no one wins and no one loses. And what that teaches children is that there is no point in striving. There's no point in attempting to achieve excellence, right? I know this kind of goes against what I was saying earlier a little bit when I was saying that when we teach kids that they can be anything they want to be, I do think it ties in. That's obviously a lie. What we should be teaching them is like, no, that's not necessarily going to happen, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't strive to be what you want to be, right? You should absolutely strive for it because strife is struggle. Right. And struggle causes growth, right? You may not end up where you want to be, where you imagine yourself, but who's to say where you don't where you do end up due to your struggles, due to your strife isn't just as fulfilling and maybe exactly what you needed. So yeah, I'm kind of going off a little bit here on this, but I think that ideology, while I do believe it is Marxist in origin and was designed to break down the family and all that, and I think it succeeded in that. But I think that we went along with it as a society. We went along with it. And we participated in it. We all got our little fucking blue ribbons and shit, and we crippled generations. You know, the millennials, we crippled them. The Zoomers, we crippled them. The alphas coming up now are going to be just as bad off, right? If we don't change something now. And actually, it might be too late for them, but it's not too late to do something to turn around the generations who come after, because they have to understand that they have to struggle, that life is pain, and you just fucking get used to it and you go through it. You know, nobody in this world either gets nor deserves a smooth ride. It's not what life is. You know, I don't really know how to end this little segue, the soapbox. It just kind of got onto this whole, but I think this is what's wrong with millennials and Gen Zs and to a degree, you know, younger Gen X and that sort of thing, which would be me. Is that we were told it was all going to be all right. We were told that we could be anything we wanted to be, and we never really had to, you know, work for anything that we have. And this all starts in adolescence. It all starts at a young age. So now you got a bunch of adults, you know, mid-20s or so, who are still adolescents, you know, who still think everything should come easy, who still think that suffering and struggle are things that shouldn't happen to them, and are flabbergasted and confounded as to why it does happen. You know, and I think that this is there are predatory adults who prey on this kind of thing, who keep people dependent while telling them that they're independent. You know, kind of a social Munchausen's by proxy. And I think that's where a lot of this trans shit comes from. You know, I ain't saying that there aren't people out there with gender dysphoria. That's a real and diagnosable thing, but I'm saying that they aren't as common as we're led to believe. Right. I'm certainly saying that a lot of the youngsters who think that they are were told that by somebody else with a nefarious agenda, because it keeps them dependent. It also, incidentally, if they go through the surgeries, keeps them sterile, like forever. So there's that. But yeah, that's true. Pain is unavoidable. Sorry, I got on my little soapbox and I started staring off. You know how you do that 1,000-yard stare when you've got a point to make and you can see where you're going to end up, but you're not sure how you got to get there. I wasn't really looking at chat. Sorry, guys. Pain is unavoidable. Everyone will go through it. That is absolutely true. Life is going to suck. It's going to have its high moments too. You know, there are going to be great things that happen, you know, things that we achieve. But none of that happens without pain, and nobody appreciates it without experiencing the lows. You know, it's not worth as much. It just doesn't. You know, Kamala. I don't know that she specifically is. I think she's a tool of other people who have their shit together. Kampala. I hadn't heard Kampala before. That's funny. Let's see. Yeah, pain is the finest teacher. It's true, right? Nothing teaches you a lesson about what to do and what not to do by forcing you to feel it. Yeah. I think I agree that will be a consequence of her being elected, but I don't think that it'll be her specifically that, you know, is the issue. She's taking orders just like Biden was. You know, she's not the problem. The problem is globalists who have infiltrated into everything. You know, the Obamas are a globalist. The Clintons are globalists. Gavin Newsom is a globalist. Outside of this country, you've also got people like Trudeau and King Chuck and Macron are all globalists. You know, and they all share the common goal, and for right now are allies. Here's the thing about allies. Alliances only last so long as all parties are having their needs met. The second that diverges, they fall apart every time. It's one of the reasons that I don't use that in terms of people that I support. I don't use that term because it's a wartime term and it's a temporary thing. You know, so yeah. Yep. WEF. That is absolutely right. Those guys are the worst The worst. They're not the only actors out there, but they are among the very, very worst. I know the CCP really wants to rule the world, and they're trying to build something up through BRICS, which is an economic alternative to the U.S. petrodollar, which is no longer a thing, by the way. But they want to achieve dominance that way. I know that despite the fact that he's focusing more on Russia, like here's the thing, right? I'm no fan of Ukraine. I don't have any desire to be involved in their bullshit, none whatsoever. I would like all of our money and our weapons back. Actually, I don't think it. I think it's kind of their fucking problem. That said, just because I think Zelensky is a corrupt motherfucker doesn't mean that I think that Putin is a good man. I think that both of the leaders in this situation are absolute pieces of shit. I really do. The difference is that I think that Zelensky is in it for himself, and Putin actually believes he's doing what's best for Russia. Maybe he is. I don't know. But that doesn't make him a good man. I think guys like that, like he's focusing on rebuilding up what he had lost, or what Russia had lost. And I can't blame him for that. I mean, Russia used to be one of the nations that was on top of the ant heap, as it were. But that doesn't mean I want Russia ruling the fucking world. By any means, I also don't want the EU expanding and getting more influence. I think that the UN should be fucking discarded into the trash heap where it belongs, because it was a bad fucking idea and it's an attempt at a global government. I think that I know that there's a coalition of Arabs headed, I think, by some of the Saudi princes and some of the people over in Dubai that are attempting to, they really want an Islamic state across the whole planet. They really do. I'm not cool with that either. I'm really not that happy about U.S. hegemony, right? Like as an empire. I think that we ought to fucking close off our borders to everybody, really, frankly. I'm pretty much opposed to anybody who wants to dominate the entire planet. But I think the WF is among the worst of them, because unlike a lot of these other guys, they're not using the same tactics. They're headed by bankers and financiers and social planners and engineers and people who think that they're smarter than everybody else on the earth and are therefore worth more. Very Third Reich, Fourth Reich kind of outlook on things. And I think that they're absolutely the worst, because I also think that they're the closest to being able to succeed at dominating everything. Right? They fund things through companies like BlackRock. The whole DEI initiative comes through there, and a handful of other things. Say what we want and we'll give you money. Don't say what we want and we'll fucking punish you. Right? Not only will we not give you any money, but nobody will do business with you because they all answer to us, kind of shit. And I absolutely think they're the most nefarious. And they're also the ones who think that we should all be living in, cubes and eating bugs. So fuck that noise. At least the Chinese don't want to feed me fucking bug gruel. I think that's debatable. I know that Ukraine has recently entered Russian territory, but there's also been a counterintelligence and counterterrorism response to that. It's been pretty effective here recently too. I don't think that either one of them's. Look, if Russia really wanted to fucking wipe Ukraine off the map, there isn't anything that Ukraine could fucking do to stop them. Not a damn thing. You're talking about one of the most powerful militaries on fucking earth versus this tiny ass little corrupt nation that's throwing everything but the kitchen sink at whatever comes its way. Right? The only effective weaponry and training that they have comes from us. So I don't know. I think that I think Ukraine is doing well because Russia doesn't actually want to conquer all of Ukraine. They just want the territories that they originally were after. Territories, by the way, that are populated by ethnic Russians who want to be part of Russia again. But yeah, if Russia really wanted to conquer Ukraine, this war would have been over in a day. So that's my feelings on it. Like, we wouldn't have been able to deploy any assistance fast enough to stop it. If they really wanted that. Yeah, they do. Like nobody wants their enemy on their fucking doorstep either. That's the other thing. Is like when they talk about, I think Poland has recently been in talks about joining NATO, right? Um, I don't know if they're actually going to or not, but they've been in talks about it. And the problem with that is that some of those Balkan states, like Poland, like Ukraine, Georgia, fucking Estonia, Latvia, those kind of nations, those nations were a buffer zone between NATO and the USSR, and the reason that they existed was to prevent one from expanding into the other. Right? They were kind of a neutral zone. That was the whole point of their not being affiliated with either side after the Iron Curtain fell. That needs to remain in place because otherwise you've got two mortal enemies fucking on each other's doorsteps, and that will lead to a fucking war. Yeah, Poland's in but to be fair, UA, Poland is in a very, very shitty situation geographically. The high ground surrounds that country. They're basically in a valley, right? Very easy to conquer them. And it always has been. Poland's been conquered probably 17 times in the last 1,000 years. And it's not their fault. That this is how they got that reputation. Like we used to tell Polak jokes all the time back before it was not PC to do so. But the reason that they got the reputation that led to those jokes was because of the repeated conquerings, which actually doesn't have anything to do with their intelligence. It just has to do with a shitty fucking geographical position. It's very hard to defend Poland in terms of geography, especially with traditional war way back in the day when, people were less inclined to use drones and bombs and shit. It was a lot more up in your face sort of thing. But yeah, they've always had kind of a bad positioning on the map there, which is unfortunate for them. That's but it doesn't mean Polacks are stupid or Poles are stupid or whatever. They're not. They're just they got that reputation because militarily they've always had their asses handed to them when it came to defending their own country. So yeah, I mean it's how the Axis were able to divide them right down the fucking middle during the Warsaw Pact. So yeah, I've met quite a few Poles who are pretty cool too. Actually, some of them I've even streamed with. Like Paul Hadouken, I think he's ethnically Polish. I think his mom was from Poland, and then True Pop Culture 7 is I think he's living in the UK, but I think he was born in Poland as well and raised there, and speaks the language and all that stuff. And they're both very cool people. Glad to know them. I mean, let's see. That's not entirely true because if that was the case during Ukrainian independence, the Donbass in 1991 had voted to remain part of Ukraine in the referendum that happened. Okay, so I think you're also talking about a time like the demographics have shifted since then too. I think more ethnic Russians have moved into the area since 1991 than were there at the beginning. I think mostly it was like Ukrainians and Magyars and such at the time. But it's like either way, it's still a small stretch of land. And I'm not saying that Ukraine should give up land. I'm not. I don't know that they should do that. I'm just saying that that's all that Russia's been after. So I think this shit got dragged out way longer than it needed to be. I think that if I know Putin's been willing to come to the table and talk. It's mostly Zelensky who's been saying, no, we're not going to do that ever. Except now he's doing it. He's saying like, well, maybe we should talk about this because the money's fucking drying up. That dude does not have his people's best interest at heart. He doesn't. And in a region known for corruption, everything in the former Soviet states. I mean, it was corrupt before the fall of the Iron Curtain. It was corrupt before the dissolution of the Union. But it sort of never really got out of that. It's like, oh, we got democracy now. Well, now we're going to continue with the bribing and all that stuff. And it's just, like if you think about the trade in orphans, right? It comes out of places like Ukraine and like Romania
and Georgia and such. Especially Romania. Romania has been really bad about this for a long time. But you get a bunch of white married couples in the U.S. who really want to adopt children. Well, adopting children in the United States is a sea of red tape. It's nearly impossible to navigate, and once you do, there's all kinds of obstacles to it that make it very, very, very difficult and very unlikely that you actually will successfully adopt somebody. There are adoptions that happen here. Obviously, they're perfectly legit and they actually make it through the red tape, but it becomes so difficult and so expensive that sometimes these nice, wholesome couples will go and they'll adopt somebody out of a Ukrainian orphanage or a Romanian orphanage or a Georgian orphanage. And the thing is a lot of times those kids aren't really orphans. They've been stolen from families and sold to these people. And these couples, they usually don't know anything about that, about how corrupt that is, and that there's a traffic in excess children being shipped off and sold to wealthy American families. But all of that is because somebody saw a market. I mean, it's a very capitalist thing to do. It is, but it's also human trafficking. So yeah. Hey, Zillage, Jack Tarlad, good to see you guys. Yes, generations and generations. So, but yeah, I don't know. The corruption in Eastern Europe is there isn't corruption like it anywhere else on Earth, I think. There is corruption obviously elsewhere on Earth. Like South America is rife with it, for example. A lot of places in the Caribbean also super corrupt. Washington, D.C., very, very corrupt. It's a cesspool of corruption, but it's almost like, so how Spaniards have turned swearing into a fine art. Eastern Europeans did that with corruption. It's kind of what I'm getting at. If you aren't corrupt, you're not going to survive over there. You're just not. Which is unfortunate. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not as much as I have to say about all these different places and stuff, I'm still a bit of an isolationist, and I'm definitely a nationalist. I put my country above all of them. I frankly think that a Ukrainian should put Ukraine above every other country. I think everybody everybody should be a nationalist. You should look out for your own above all others. And if it comes to forsaking all others for the sake of your own, absolutely. I'm totally cool with that. Venezuela wants to close its borders to everybody and work on fixing itself. I have absolutely no problem with that. I know our government would, because then, they're still not getting access to the however many billions of gallons of fucking oil. But, Venezuela wants to be Venezuela and wants to tell the rest of the world, go fuck themselves. I'm all for that. I think they should. I think we should. I think we've all become entirely too reliant and dependent on international relations and trade to be able to survive in the long run, because sooner or later somebody's going to step up and say, hey, I got to be in charge of all of this shit or it's going to fall apart. And everybody else can be like, well, no, it should be me. It should be me up in charge. And then you got this guy over here. No, I think it should be me, which inevitably leads to disagreements, which inevitably leads to arguments, to screaming matches, and then eventually to war. Right. And yeah, you're probably going to get some wars and stuff with an isolationist policy across the world, but And there are some places, obviously, that have less resources than others. I understand this. And that certain things, certain modern amenities have been made possible only through global trade. I get that. But I'm saying that wasn't necessarily, it's not necessary to survive. It isn't. And speaking for my own country, the United States, we have abundant resources. We don't need to be trading with anybody for any of them. Right? All we need to do is instill in our workforce a sense of American can do again. Really. That's it. Bring shit home. Manufacture here. We have everything we need to sustain ourselves nearly fucking indefinitely in this country. We don't actually need the rest of the world. There are some countries, I'm sure, like I don't know, Jamaica. Jamaica's primary resources are like coconuts and slaves. They don't have a lot going on there. in tourism. So I don't know, but I think and I don't have a problem with Ukraine fighting for Ukraine. I really don't. I kind of have a problem with Zelensky fighting for Ukraine because I don't believe he is. I believe he's fighting for Zelensky. Let's see. Do you think we're capable of making our own semiconductors too? They seem to preach on how important those are here. I think that we have the things that we need for it here. Yeah. And if we're missing some particular element like cadmium or whatever that can only be mined in like Africa or China or some shit like that, I mean, you're talking about America, man. We engineered the internal combustion engine. We can figure a way around that. We built the first airplanes. We were the first to split the atom. We were the first to to break atmosphere. Like America could figure out a way around that if we really wanted to. But we got to want to again. And I think some of us do, but not enough, and certainly not enough of the people in charge. I agree. Yeah, no, we shouldn't be relying heavily on Taiwan, especially because Taiwan is about to be absorbed into Greater China. Much like Tibet was, and Nepal, and I mean, I guess Nepal's technically still something, but you're not supposed to talk about Tibet. Tibet didn't happen. Tibet's not an independent country at all. It never was. So I think Elon could do it partially. Yeah. Well, he could figure out the semiconductor thing. Sure. If he couldn't, I'm sure there's somebody who worked for him who absolutely could. The guy employs some very brilliant people. He also employs some fucking idiots over on Twix, but he could figure out how to do that. So, but yeah, that's Taiwan is. It's funny about the Taiwanese is that they regard themselves as true China, and that the mainland thing is just upstart that calls itself China. It's just pretty funny to me. But yeah, they're not going to win that fight, and we're not going to stop it from happening because we'll allow it to happen so that we have an excuse to get into another Pacific theater conflict, this time with China instead of Japan or Korea. And it's just it's a fucking mess over there. But I guess my problem is that it shouldn't be our problem. It really shouldn't. I was like, my heart does bleed for these people. I don't want people to think that I'm callous and that I don't actually care about people. I do. But I think I need to prioritize. And I think we all need to prioritize. It's like my country first, my people first. Right. And if that means cutting ties with the smaller, weaker people that we don't have a chance of defending anyway. Right. Then unfortunately, so be it. Yeah. Well, that doesn't surprise me. They forced fucking John Cena to apologize in goddamn Cantonese, I think, for calling Taiwan a country a couple years ago. It's kind of impressive that he speaks Cantonese, but also not so impressive that he was kind of a bitch about the whole thing. So I don't know. I don't know, man. I think it probably absolutely would. Because the only way that they're not absorbed by China is if other superpowers get between China and Taiwan. And I don't believe that our government will do that. I think they'll make a big show of it, but I think they'll actually let it happen. Being chilling. I'm not 100% sure what that means, Jack. Bing chilling? Like Bing the search engine? Or Chandler Bing, perhaps? Who knew? Yeah. 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 And I mean, Tibetans are still Tibetans, man, but they're not Tibet anymore. So. Oh, yeah. Okay. I gotcha. I think I might have seen that video. I just didn't know the name of it. We didn't talk about Chenandler. Yeah, I don't have any specifics, and I obviously am talking in vagaries and suppositions here because I don't know for a fact, but there is something to suggest that Matthew Perry did in fact not kill himself, and someone else did, allegedly. You know, just some kind of like what happened with Bob Saget, and how it kind of forensically looks a little bit like somebody took a baseball bat to his fucking head, and that he didn't fall down the stairs or whatever it was they fucking said that it happened to him. So it's kind of looking like they got murked, allegedly. You know. Yeah, but you don't need combat experience to press a couple of buttons and fucking launch missiles, dude, from a distance. You know, most of our drone pilots don't have any real combat experience either. They're piloting the fucking drones from thousands of miles away, safely locked away. You know, they never even leave stateside. So yeah, it's like they can still rain enough fire down on China or on Taiwan to get them to submit. And if they don't submit, just, I mean, there are ways to take out the Taiwanese while leaving their infrastructure intact and then just take over the manufacturing from there. They don't actually need the Taiwanese, just their infrastructure, just their factories. That's it. You know, and if it comes to that, I have no doubt that China would do that. None whatsoever. The only thing stopping them is the fact that they're trying to build their little economic coalition, BRICS, and make that a viable thing in the world economy. You know, but honestly, man, they get to that point, they succeed in that, right? And you know, economically, the U.S. loses all power. Russia's part of BRICS, so they, you know, go up with that. But those countries that they've allied with wouldn't necessarily have a problem with them doing that, and we'd no longer be an economic superpower. And the way things are going, we might not be a military superpower for that much longer either. So even if we wanted to, there wouldn't be shit we could do about it to stop them. And nobody else on earth has the wherewithal or the willingness to do so at this point. So yeah, at the point where they take our place as the dominant superpower on earth, yeah, they'll absolutely start doing shit that they wouldn't dare do now for fear of losing opinion and allierships. So I don't know. Well, yeah, it is. So just it's a lot of shit going on out there, man. I don't know. I don't know why that's telling me to view a satellite map. I don't want to view a satellite map. I don't even know what it's a map of. So, but sort of to reiterate, we're coming up on 2 hours here. We'll probably close it out soon here, but to reiterate what we were talking about at the top of the show, fuck the Metro Police, fuck Parliament. Frankly, I think you guys need to back off your fucking citizenry and maybe back them a little bit, you know, because I'm gonna put this out there as a little bitty reminder. 1776, we told the British to go fuck themselves once. Worked out pretty well for us in the long term. And remember that those colonists who told the British to go fuck themselves were British citizens at the time. Just remember that. You're going to end up pushing your people too fucking far. And then where will you be? And I, of course, can say this comfortably from, you know, my home 5,000 miles away from the British Parliament. But yeah, no, just don't keep pushing your citizens, because you're going to find there'll be a point when they're going to stop being so famously polite about things, you know. And there are It's never a good idea to fucking terrorize your populace. Never a good idea, because only one of two things will happen. Either they'll be cowed and they'll become weak and they'll become useless, or they'll eventually rise up against you, and then it's your head on the guillotine. You know, and you don't want that. Maybe strike a middle ground here, right? Maybe do something about some of the Islamists. You know, maybe stop prosecuting people for speaking their minds, because these are not good things. These are things that lead to tyranny and destruction. You know, so yeah, just remember, we were British citizens once too. You know, it'll happen. And to those of you out there who are British, and I can say this because I am not a British citizen, and despite their threats earlier this week, there isn't a goddamn thing the Metropolitan Police can do about this. Because even if they could convince my government to arrest me and send me over there, my government would still have to actually arrest me, which means that they'd have to do so over my cold dead body. And I think you'll find that's true of a lot of Americans. We ain't going along with this shit. And we don't think the British populace should go along with this shit either. I know you guys are in a tough spot right now. And, you know, and that's an awful fucking thing. And my heart does go out to the British people. But your government, fuck them. You know, and as far as I'm concerned, if, and I'm gonna throw the word alleged out here as well. I am not, because I got to say this shit on YouTube, because otherwise they'll shut my fucking ass down. If Britain had a 1776 moment, if in fact this does come to pass, big if, but if it does, I'm going to repeat what I said last week. Don't half-ass it. Follow through all the way, or they will use this to crush you under their boot heels forever. Right? Just be prepared for that. Yeah. Allegedly. So, well, that's the thing. It's like nobody has the resources to police the planet. Even the U.S. doesn't. We like to let people think that we do, but we don't. You know, so I focus on the most populated areas. But yeah, it's. I guess I hope you guys get your shit figured out. I really do, because the way things are going now, this is not good. It's not good at all. And I'm not one of those guys who's going to say, like, that's not a good look, because I don't really care about the fucking optics. What I care about is the long term. And in the long term, I kind of see this turning out as a V for Vendetta situation with nobody to stand up, right? With fingermen in the streets and curfews. You know, people being disappeared because they said a thing, not just sent to jail, not publicly sent to jail, just disappeared. You know, a secret police, like what happened in Germany in the 30s, or in Russia in the 40s and 50s and 60s, 70s, or in China during that period as well. They just come and they take people in the night, and you never see them again. My good friend Luke Castley has talked about this before, and she is I think Nicaraguan by way of Venezuela, or I can't remember if it's the other way around. Anyway, she was in Venezuela at the time when the commies took over, and people were being dragged out of their homes in the middle of the night, never to be seen again there. It was a regular occurrence. Everybody lived in fear of that shit. You know, and now Venezuela's on the verge of total collapse. Right? A few years later. You know, well, it is. It's always this utopia thing. It's always the we can make people better thing. You know, like we can. Like there's a speech in the movie Serenity where Malcolm Reynolds talks about this. He talks about, because they were trying to invent this thing called the Paxilon, whatever, that was supposed to pacify people, and it did. It pacified them so much they stopped eating, they stopped breathing, they stopped doing anything. They just kind of let themselves die. except for like a tenth of a percent of the population, which became the Reavers, which had the opposite effect and went crazy and started eating and raping everything to death. But the problem with that is that the government, the people who think they're in charge, the unelected people in the WEF, the shadowy people who want to pull all the strings of everybody everywhere, think that they can make people better, that they can change what people are, and they'll still be people. And this is untrue, right? And as long as they are people, as long as people still remain human, there is no utopia. There can't be utopia, because part of the human condition is to struggle against that which we see as unfair or unjust, or just plain stepping on our toes, right? Part of human nature is to stand up and to struggle and to fight back. Even if we're in the wrong, it's part of what we are. Utopia can't happen. But you got these fucking people who are like, well, we can make it happen, but we got to make some serious fundamental changes to people in order for that to happen, which is fucking evil. Like, we're doping our kids to the gills with things like Paxil and Zoloft and fucking Ritalin, and just all these drugs designed to change the way the brain works, to change it from being human to being something docile and easily controlled and easily manipulated. And at that point, what is the worth in calling ourselves human when we're essentially puppets at that point, right? We're marionettes. We dance when they pull the strings, right? Only then will utopia be achievable, but we won't be human anymore. We'll be something that's worth far less. And on that note, I'm going to probably stream. So thank you for listening to me blather on for 2 hours here. Hey, Andy, good to see you, man. Yeah, this has been an interesting stream. Sorry about the technical difficulties earlier on that. And I hope to see some of y'all over in Amira's channel later tonight. I believe she is planning to go live. I don't know if she's put the thing out yet or not, but otherwise, you can find me over on Renaissance Nerds channel on Monday for Mellow Mondays, and back here for Abyssal Musings next week. I believe that the verses we're doing next week will be the Tall Man from Phantasm versus the Candyman. So that should be interesting. And then we'll be back to the pub, and then right back here for Screaming into the Void next week. Hopefully we'll have a panel. But thank you all for joining me. I appreciate all of you guys being here and all that. And just remember, it could always be worse. It could be in England. Sorry, UA. Have a great night.